Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of video game news. Today is Friday, June 14th. There was a load screen on Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it was loading in the animation to one of the single player stories it shows if you sit on the load screen long enough. That had me for a second there thinking my screen was suffering from burn-in. Because when it goes to black, instead of just going to a pure black, which you would expect, it shows a black with a pattern of very light white squares in the background that I was mistaking for icons on my desktop. Which, yeah, that's not good. Certainly you don't want to scare and spook people. I guess we'll see what this pack is. I guess we can do these bonus packs today, and then we need to go back to the World Championship, and that's pretty much it for today. If we can get to playing regular rank, that would be nice. End of the line. Interesting. And it has a Pot of Greed picture here. If your life points are lower than 100, draw 2 cards. Then if your life points are lower than 10, draw 2 additional cards. I have no idea how you get your life points down that low. That seems very specific. For the catch-up section, I've spent, I think, most of the past 2 days putting together a piece of furniture, and that has caused my hand to be very sore screwing in all those screws. And as such, I don't think in the past 2 days I've played any of Fallout New Vegas. That's probably not true. I probably have played some Fallout New Vegas and just don't really remember it. So I'll just roll back somewhat in my mind and say that from what I remember of the Honest Arts DLC, they are doing something fairly different once I move the main story forward a little bit, in that they gave me 3 quests to go into 3 little corners of the medium to small size map that the DLC has, which is going to push me to see every fast travel location on the map and have a reason to see every fast travel location on the map. Whereas I'd say the main game of New Vegas kind of fails at doing that. There was quite a lot of fast travel locations that you never really needed to visit, and there was nothing about the story, main story, that would have pushed you towards that. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. The Honest Arts DLC does have one of those Far Cry-like experiences, and I half wonder if it actually happened first in New Vegas, where since the Honest Arts DLC has you interacting with these like Native American type characters, you get sent on a hunt and you're supposed to collect resources to get high on some kind of special drug, and you go on this hunt and you fight a ghost of a bear effectively, and the bear bursts into flames, and mid-fight it also splits into 3 ghosts, which, okay. I wish there was more of that in New Vegas. There's very possibly is more of that in New Vegas if you take the Wild Wastelands trait at the very beginning of the game. But you pretty much have to take that trait at the beginning of the game, otherwise you're going to miss it by the time you hit level 50 the first time. Speaking of hitting level 50 the first time, I use the console command to reset myself down to level 1. Still playing on very easy, and I kind of got to level 5 or 6 just playing the game. I have now turned it up to normal difficulty and realized that on normal difficulty you're getting more XP when you kill things. So there definitely is an argument to never really play the game on very easy mode. Like, at the very least, there's an argument to start it very easy and then slowly crank it up as you feel more confident. If you're killing things in 3 shots on average, it's probably time to crank up the difficulty. But yeah, by the time you hit level 50 for sure, you'll have a gun that does 200, 300, 400 damage per second. So turning up the difficulty then makes a lot of sense. And frankly, I might turn it up even higher to hard or very hard, just to see if there is a way to rush with the remaining amount of content that I can find to play to get to level 50 a second time. Although, some of those perks that you get exclusively on level 50 require you to have neutral karma or bad karma. And if you were going to take those perks, you would have to do quite a lot a second time around. Like, if you had good karma when you naturally got to level 50 the first time, you would have to do a lot of bad stuff to get down to neutral to get to level 50 the second time, and then you'd have to do a lot of even more bad stuff to get down to negative karma. And it's not like the boosts there are great. Inherently, those 3 level 50 trait perks should be the only perk you can take. They should just be given to you by default, and they should reset your karma and reset your level to 1. It just makes a lot of sense there. And honestly, even if you played the game 3 times over as far as getting levels up to 50, you still aren't going to have all the perks. It's still going to be a case where you would have to pick and choose. And it definitely doesn't feel like New Vegas is such an open game that you could just run around doing that forever. That's clearly what video games of that era wanted to be. Is they wanted to be games of services and MMOs, or they wanted to be MMOs first, and then MMOs eventually just evolved into games of services. But yeah, they want you to play them forever. Yeah, well, that's pretty much all I have to say. Otherwise, my bidet toilet is still broken, so I ordered another one, and it's gonna show up, and that'll be the next project. My laundry washing machine seems to be working fine, no leaks, but I am taking extended precautions, which, yeah, no matter how paranoid / precautious or overly precautious you try to be, there's always going to be that one thing you overlook. And clearly, not having leak sensors, not having a drain pan, not having an condensate pump was where I dropped the ball. see what we can do with this. Kill that to start with. The problem here is this card is turning everything into a zombie, and thus I can't activate these effects because all the cards in the graveyard are also zombies, and I needed them to be beast warriors or winged beasts. I got a slick deals kind of before all this extra expenses started happening on like non-GMO, non-genetically modified seeds that you could grow fruits and vegetables from, which would then also have seeds that could grow next generations of fruits and vegetables from. And so slight side project there of just having some flower pot vegetables growing. So my gadget lust led me to find a Tuya/Smart Life based hydroponic grow flower pot kit thing, and so I'm gonna try that out. Now, while I was looking at them, they widely vary in price. The one I've got is like $30, which is cheap enough for it to be a good experiment, whereas there are ones that definitely go closer to $100 for the small size, and then there are definitely some much larger scale things that could be $400 or $500 if you're gonna just have like 96 plants all growing in one giant hydroponic, more tower-like device, which, you know, that may just scale up certainly at that point. Like a little sapling of a tomato plant is one thing, but once it starts to really grow and is 4 or 5 feet, you're either gonna have to plant it outside or you're going to have to do something else. It might very well be a case where I might want to only grow these plants to what would be a small height of 3 or 4 feet and then give them away, taking the seeds and starting over from scratch, or just throwing seeds, if there's a lot of them, wildly outside to see if they would grow wild. There's a lot of opportunity, but also it's going to take a lot of work. The hydroponic thing I have gotten is just like full spectrum LEDs that grow. It has an adjustable height on the LEDs and a removable base. So once they go from little seeds in seed pods, they can just be put in regular planters and still use the grow light, which is all nice. There isn't any real humidity controls on it though, or a fan. And at a certain level I question, like, I'm doing this sort of at a rush pace because in part it's summer and yeah, spring, fall, things like that. It feels like the right time to, probably isn't the right time to plant even, but whatever. But there is certainly also a question that if it's indoors, if it's artificially controlled light, could I straight up grow the plants at any time if the air conditioning is keeping the humidity and temperature about the same year round? And certainly I'll have to mess with the device as far as just how helpful it really is as far as telling you what the right times are to have the lights on and what the wrong times are to have the lights on, because I imagine you could it could just be a timer, which would require a lot of knowledge to be in my head that I don't have, as far as if you're trying to grow a certain amount of plant, certain type of plants, how much light should it get, when should the light come on and off, should the light be on in the middle of the night? Probably not. It probably should be on in the same time that the sun would be outside. But yeah, that'll be a long-term, more long-term experimental thing. Science project type thing. Meanwhile, I was thinking what I would do after today's stream, since I didn't get anything else recorded today, is I might focus more on the scheduling of videos, which I did look at that YouTube inspiration, quote-unquote AI help, and one of the things I saw, as far as like the game Fury is airing on my channel right now, it's getting no views. Most of my content is getting no views at this point. So I typed that in as far as how to get more watch time, and then that didn't really help. And then I typed in Fury alone, and the comparisons were that a lot of people were putting the phrase full game in the title. So I think with future schedules going forward, that will just be part of it, is that full game will be a descriptor. It'll also probably be a type of series going forward, that it will just have the name of the game, the number, and then like full game after that, because that is something that it seems like people are searching, and that is an accurate enough description of what my pre-recorded series are, because I am playing the full game. I also have a thought that as OBS is evolving and YouTube is evolving, there's going to be a point where video files can be made with secondary audio tracks, and with that there is going to be a possibility of having just no commentary, video game audio only as the secondary audio track of videos getting uploaded. That still runs into copyright fair use problems, certainly, and YouTube's not really going to ever be able to help with that. You can do it already with OBS. Like, at least there's a lot of foundations to do that. There's 8 different audio tracks in the settings with OBS that could be used to do different things, and that's excluding the monitor track, which would be a 9th audio track. But I don't think YouTube has the video format for it, which, okay. I don't know if there's going to be any other major upgrades that would happen. I still need to get around to getting a new monitor. I'm going to see if I can put that off a little bit longer, since I'm buying other things instead, more important things. And that new monitor is going to be 4K, but that's really not anywhere close to a step towards playing 4K video or recording 4K video. OBS using a new, or YouTube using a new video format would certainly help with the idea of 4K if there's just better compression there, lossless compression, or very good lossy compression. One of the things I also had worried about and seen is that some of the videos for Fallout New Vegas were getting blocked due to copyright claims, and the territory that they were being partially blocked in was Russia. So that is not really a concern to me. The only territory I'm really concerned about would be the United States. People in Russia can use a VPN to watch my videos if they're that desperate. Let's see. I don't think we have too much other catch-up stuff to talk about that I can remember, at least. So apparently Yacht Club Games Presents is going to begin in, well, began about 10 minutes ago. No tweets so far about what they're actually presenting. So, yep. Some of the news here, as far as YouTube Gaming, says Zuli the Witch's 8th channel anniversary is today. I have no idea who this person is. This once again just highlights how you can be fairly successful here. 245 million views and never heard of him, her, him, whoever. There certainly is a thought I wanted to investigate more, as far as, is this somebody who just has an avatar for their icon, or yeah. So yeah, I have no idea about this YouTuber. They seem to be fairly focused on what looks like Dark Souls gameplay. Looking at her front page. Has 426 videos, 714,000 subscribers. Just a massive difference in my experience versus other people's experience, so successful people's experience. I'm not really seeing any face cam. I'm seeing very short videos here of just like a minute of gameplay with a single screenshot that seems to be very consistent on the thumbnails, and this is a great example of just how much the algorithm overemphasizes thumbnails. Like, no content at all in any of these videos, really. 5 minutes at most, averaging less than 5 minutes, and it's just one good thumbnail to show something, one small interesting thing at best. In one niche category of Dark Souls and Elden Ring gameplay. Frankly, I don't know a better way to say it, but it straight up just pisses me off that there's this much success. And I'm not trying to take anything away from this content creator who I've never seen any of their videos, but it is really, really irritating to see someone get lucky and succeed so well when making such a small amount of content. And yes, you can always make the argument that maybe these 4 minute, 3 minute, 1 minute videos are taking, yeah, I'm not even gonna try and start another game here. for a second here. Maybe it takes them a week to make these 3-minute videos if they're really, really slow. But no, I don't buy it. Here's the other issue, certainly, that probably screwed this content creator more than anybody else, is almost certainly Zuli the Witch here is not monetized to any real level, because none of these videos are going to get you enough watch time. Even if people just watched it over and over and over again, you're never going to get that 10,000 watch hours unless you're getting massive amounts of people to watch your 1-minute videos over and over again. And certainly it peeves me too that the algorithm is so happy with such short content. Now, on the copyright fair use argument, I'd say Zuli the Witch here is probably golden in that such small clips can't possibly be considered a replacement. Seems like maybe they do some hacking elements, modding. But yeah, if we went back to just popular videos here, 4.7 million views on a 1-minute and 42-second video. So yeah, it's irritating that that's what the algorithm promotes and where people can get lucky. Nothing to say bad about Zuli the Witch as a content creator, but really not making a lot of content for 8 years, certainly. And yet that's the one that's one of the few channels that has been a success. It is kind of uplifting to see that somebody can do a no face cam video channel and succeed, because there is a real thought that most, if not almost all, content creators need to have a face cam to succeed, because the algorithm just loves human faces so much more. But yeah, anything uplifting from that is lost immediately when you see the consistent thumbnail work. Yeah. I would heavily suspect Zuli the Witch is also a Twitch streamer too. That would be my other guess, is that she has a lot of views on Twitch and a lot of followers on Twitch, and then she uploads small clips, shorter clips onto YouTube. But yeah, moving on, SAG-AFTRA says it's likely going to strike if publishers disagree with AI productions. Negotiations are being held up by a lack of consensus on the controversial technology and what it means for voice actors. Inherently, there is a lot of desire by management of video game companies to say they are using AI, even if they're not actually using AI as much as they say they are. Whereas SAG-AFTRA, as a voice actor union, is going to actively say we want major protections and considerations around that. Not that they're going to be 100% opposed to the idea of AI. But yeah, we already are having examples of AI-like offerings where they're hiring sound-alikes to do voice models for AI, like content, or yeah, in particular, the actress who was in that movie, her voice has been effectively stolen, and there's already been a likeness lawsuit because of that. Let's see. Scarlett Johansson called out OpenAI, and they actually mention it. And if I was just reading the article instead of just focusing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, I would have seen that. The problem with the strike, I would say mostly right now, though, from SAG-AFTRA, and this is more of just my opinion, I guess is what I'll throw that out as, is that there just really hasn't been a lot of unionization in the video game voice acting field. There's been a lot more in the voice acting field than in the game testing and development fields, or any of the other fields, but it still really hasn't been that much, so a strike may just not be that painful. Interesting how that still worked as a card. Meanwhile, it is also worth pointing out that the United States Supreme Court just sided with Starbucks' anti-union, union-busting tactics in some levels against a complaint brought to and being headed up by the National Labor Review Board. So, the current status and makeup of the United States Supreme Court also makes it heavily likely that it would side with big business and side against union and worker rights, worker protections. So a strike may not be as effective there anyways. And certainly that's a backside to all these layoffs, is we will see how many new companies sprout up from all the people being laid off that are perhaps more worker run or union friendly, at least at some level. It's not all bad news, or potential bad news, though. ZeniMax's union has secured Juneteenth holiday for all ZeniMax staff, along with applying Juneteenth as a day off to contractors jumping to full-time. The ZWU reinstated Christmas Eve as a paid holiday for union members, so it seems like they are fighting to just get specific days as paid holidays. But yeah, that's some small steps, small bits of progress. You would think that bigger contracts would have more issues settled, but a lot of times it is really just individual contracts are down to 3 or 4 issues that they are focusing on, and there's just such a fight to even get progress on those 3 or 4 issues that giant massive changes just don't really happen. sometimes it is definitely a struggle just to maintain what you already have agreed upon in previous contracts and maybe get a cost of living type raise. And certainly ZeniMax's success, while not to be ignored, is not reflecting the fact that Microsoft itself is not really unionized and that the Microsoft Xbox division has laid off a lot of people. Now, Warner Brothers retweeted a special Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League Twitter account, which was tweeting out a weekend Battle Pass XP boost starting now, which I guess that means you had to pay for the Battle Pass, whereas inherently, if you wanted to have some success in this game, I think you'd probably every weekend have XP boosts for all. And yeah, look at these characters in this weird armor they're all wearing. It is completely off-putting. It just doesn't look like any of the right characters. And they've gotten rid of Captain Boomerang to replace it with a Joker in a weird armor. Unless this is supposed to be a Jokerette with these thighs showing in this curve. In this outfit, I wouldn't be surprised if this is supposed to be a female Joker from an alternate universe. But yeah. Even Warner Brothers has done no good effort to promote Suicide Squad, which at this level I would probably say they should just probably just make the game free to start and give a lot of free stuff away and just try to get people to play it. There's a lot of games like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League where it could just be around, it could be free, people could jump in whenever, and it would maybe over slow amounts of time gain a fandom, gain an audience. Instead, the alleged expense of running the servers is just so high that you see these games just cancelled abruptly and shut down or abandoned abruptly. So, next story we have here is that Fortnite and the Epic Games Store are coming to Japan's iOS store in 2025. Recent law in Japan let third-party app stores exist on iOS, and Epic is taking advantage to get on another country's storefront. Which, yeah, that makes sense that Epic would do that. It's questionable, though, how many people in Japan really play Fortnite or would want to engage with the Epic Games Store. There is a small danger, I suppose, there, as it does seem like PC gaming is growing in popularity in Japan, that all of a sudden you would have just this cultural influx of people in Japan buying their PC games on the Epic Games Store. The reason why that probably wouldn't happen is just because Steam is so big and already full of so many visual novels and Japanese-centric games that the Epic Games Store in Japan would have to go into overdrive to have all of those games available and compete in some way. And it's not like the Epic Games Store has sold itself as being a bastion of like anti-Western sentiment or anti-Western censorship. So, like, if the Epic Store was known as the place where they were going to allow more of the adult content without throwing in a problem, more of the anime, moe, hentai type content, that might be something, but I don't think they're really going to go in that direction. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, this is one of these kind of articles and statements from GameDeveloper.com that I feel is kind of pointless and you really shouldn't report on. And ex-employers, ex-developers from ZA/UM are saying a scrapped Disc Elysium spin-off could have saved the studio. Well, no, it couldn't. Let's just be honest about that. The management didn't let that game be made, and thus the studio failed. So you cannot end run the management, unfortunately, and make a game that in an alternate scenario and then see and hope it would have succeeded. I mean, this is really just a long way of saying the management was incompetent, but pretty much the fact that the studio has been shut down, which I assume it has been, already says that. And in particular, game developers have no idea about finances. It's just not their expertise. It's not their focus. It's not what they should be spending their time on or looking at it. It's nice to hear developers had enthusiasm for a game, but this is very much a sour grapes type of headline that is completely unactionable as far as gamers are concerned. There's just nothing you can do about that but sigh in sadness, and that's just not helpful for anything. Inherently, you could make this similar statements always, like for any company that's ever shut down. Even companies that haven't shut down, you could say at any point in the last 25 to 30 years, Half-Life 3 would have made Steam billions of dollars. Doesn't matter if that might be true or not. You can't prove it. It didn't happen. It's just pointless speculation. Now, I found this headline kind of surprising in that Xbox's Sea of Thieves was PS5's most downloaded game in May. So clearly, people on the PS5 are playing it more than I thought. It definitely does feel like there is an audience around Sea of Thieves, but I just don't see them. I don't hear them. Either I'm not following the right subreddits, or I'm not following a different website where people are enthusiastic about Sea of Thieves. It may very well be that people who are enthusiastic about Sea of Thieves are just playing the game, and then there's just no outside mention that they're playing the game. That is something that is lackluster on all of these systems, is that even on Steam, I don't have a lot of people that I've friended, so it's not like I only have like 5 friends who randomly asked to be my friends, so not really even people I know. So it's an impossibly small sample size as far as seeing who is playing what. And that's why I've been using the Steam DB charts to try and monitor what people are playing on Steam and get a better idea. It's because obviously this is difficult information to get even slightly accurate. But yeah. Let's go and activate this. And this will be the last game we play for today. Like, I really am just trying to get these warm-up games to be less and less. Let's see. What do we want? This one? Okay, we hope here would be to destroy two of the important spell cards. Apparently there is a Godot conference. It's a yearly gathering of the Godot engine developers from around the world. I'm gonna start following them. They are saying you can get your tickets now and submit ideas for GodotCon 2024 or 24. And so they have a whole link to it. First batch of tickets go live this Friday. That would be today. So, yeah. This will be the first year of me paying attention to Godot, in which the evaluation as far as how much enthusiasm has stuck for the Godot engine as an open source engine compared to how much enthusiasm has just pittered out and waned after the whole Unreal Engine nonsense, which nobody's really complaining about Unreal at the moment. Nobody's talking about Unreal either. I mean Unity, not Unreal. The whole Unity nonsense, and nobody's talking about Unity. One good thing is if Unity goes away, at least Unreal Engine and Godot don't both start with the letter U. The World of Warcraft General Manager John Haidt exits Blizzard's after 12 years. He's been working since 2012, and along with World of Warcraft, he helped the development of Overwatch and Warcraft 3 Reforged. I didn't even remember Warcraft 3 Reforged existed. So, I mean, I guess he may have been there during the development of the successful parts of Overwatch, and maybe been around during some of the more successful parts of World of Warcraft. 12 years is a long time, certainly, and I could also see there just being a different situation now that Microsoft owns Activision Blizzard. He is one of the older developers here, and he started his career in 1991 making CDI titles like Connect 4 and Battleship, Command & Conquer 2, Neverwinter Nights 2, God of War 3. Those are all good titles. But yeah, if he's a general manager though, he's not really making games. No, I'm always a little surprised when a game developer jumps over to be a manager and just gets promoted outside of their level of skill, but it also kind of makes sense, particularly in programming, that people might only really know how to program on a certain version of a certain compiler, and if they're just not staying up with the code and the new ways to program things, maybe they do just age out and are better off as a general manager, or a manager in general. And they may actually learn some skills to be a manager as a developer over the course of the years. Maybe. Probably not that much. Definitely, if money was no object, which it is definitely an object for me, I would just throw a whole bunch of money into this game and wail and hope that that would get me more success. I question how much of all of this I'm actually going to get done in the next 9 days, although I may just play a lot of this off screen too. probably not. Pretty much every time I've even suggested that, it's never happened. But with my hand hurting, playing this off screen would potentially make some sense. Yeah. Speaking of playing things, I still am also playing Tinkafuma with some new content on my phone, which is an adult game, and Memento Mori, which is not an adult game, which has cycled in a new event. So a Tango Gameworks employee shared pictures from Xbox's studios' final day. The Evil Within, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Hi-Fi Rush Studios closed its doors. This would be ZeniMax Asia's office, I would say. And one thing I would say about this is probably an example of where this kind of promotional stuff is done too much. That you have an entire statue of a Fallout 3 statue in your display room, that you have even a display room. I mean, this is square footage that's being leased out or rented more than anything. And I know these things get made to promote things, but most of the stuff doesn't end up in the toy store. There are no more toy stores. You're not going to look in a Walmart and see a Pip-Boy character or a poster even. So, and there's no more E3, and it was a waste even when E3 was happening to have these kinds of displays and curiosities. This is a great example of where publishers have, for pretty much as long as they've existed in the video game industry, wasted money and blown the budget with all of these little decorations. Now, at some level, I'll give you a pass for a Pip-Boy on a statue in the wall, because this certainly could have been part of some collector's edition. And small posters, certificates, awards, things like that, I'm okay with. But when you're getting to the ridiculous level of 5-foot, 4-foot statues, giant picture frames, which, by the way, these kinds of giant picture frames also run into the issue of being very difficult to actually hang on a wall, and very difficult to actually have a wall that would even be hangable. I can't even tell what this is. This just looks like a file drawer. Yeah. And I don't know if there was any more pictures here. 1 second here. Sorry, somebody's yelling in the other room and they're being so loud. I don't want them yelling out any kind of personal identifiable information type stuff. They, I think, have moved further away or quieted down. Alright, but yeah, as far as pictures go, and here the problem here certainly is these pictures get sent now by Twitter, and so you have to click on the Twitter ones to see them. So here we have a bunch of pizzas, which is fine. It certainly, though, has to be pointed out how it can be fairly nice to have an office shut down versus just being fired in some cases. Certainly Microsoft could have been nicer and given them 6 months to find a new job, and told people they don't really need to come in unless they really want to, instead of giving them probably closer to 30 days notice. You can see there's a lot of cardboard boxes with what looks like just cardboard boxes in them. So they probably paid more than you would expect to buy cardboard to box things up. But yeah. There definitely are also other people who straight up will would be just fired. And who's to say that they aren't cardboard boxing up computers and taking them home? Probably not. Particularly in Asian countries, this being a Japanese company, like if you boxed up a gaming PC that was about this size, you'd have a hard time fitting that into a Japanese apartment. I don't even know if you'd be able to really find enough outlets, but you probably would. But yeah. And the basic thought here, as far as I think Microsoft is concerned, is that when the maker of The Evil Within 1 left, all the talent that they cared about also left from Tango Gameworks. Also, it's weird to, like, with all the heads cut off here, it's weird to see these arms and these outfits. It makes me wonder how many of these people are actually even Asian. Like, they could all be Asian. They could also none of them be Asian. Seems weird. Everybody's in jeans or shorts. Everybody's in t-shirts. They definitely are not trying to impress anybody with their dress. But yeah. As far as I know, this may not even be the employees. This may be a cleanup crew of temporary employees flown in from these could all be just low-level managers or low-level employees flown in from America to clean out the office. And yeah, that's a possibility. What's mostly surprising about this, and this would be lean more to an argument that this is not a bunch of Asian people in the Asian office, is these pizzas look suspiciously too much like American style pizzas. First of all, they're not from Pizza Hut, which is way more popular in Japan, to my understanding. So much that they advertise with a popular anime, but there's just no squid ink, no fish on any of these pizzas, as far as I can tell. Nothing weird looking. It just looks like very standard pizzas, and maybe that's why they bought it from Pizza LA, is because they're calling that Los Angeles style pizzas. And I definitely have been in offices that have had these like pizza parties, and they always order way too much food, and I certainly am willing to end up, and have in the past have ended up taking entire pizzas home, 2-3 pizzas. And yeah, most other employees won't do that, and I don't care, particularly if the office is closing, or inherently if the office was closing, I would be going through all of these computers and stuff and saying, what can I just grab and take? Nobody's gonna really do an inventory of these items. For either they've done inventory as they're packing up now, or they're not going to do another inventory for 6 months to a year, and nobody's going to come back and say, hey, there's a stapler missing. But yeah, it is also, I guess, and this is probably the same pictures, not very helpful information from Video Games Chronicle here. Like, what are you supposed to take from this other than an attempt at Video Games Chronicle to manufacture more outrage? which I can't really stir up as much outrage as it seems like mainstream video game journalism wants gamers to have for Tango Gameworks to be shut down. Sure, they had success in Hi-Fi Rush. They must have helped at some point doing some DLC or something in Fallout 3. I don't believe Tango Gameworks or really did major parts. I'm not sure they really did major parts in any of this as far as what the games are being mentioned. And then Ghostwire Tokyo just unfortunately was too Japanese to gain any popularity. And I can't really argue with Microsoft's thought processes that I assume they had, in that they probably have struggles to communicate with a Japanese company that probably has a more Japanese style of doing things. They have to fly over to Japan to have any kind of face-to-face meetings, and that costs money. The Xbox isn't selling anything, and they're not gaining any inroads really in Japan. So it would have probably always made more sense for Microsoft to simply be a silent partner or investor in Tango Gameworks more than being a owner of Tango Gameworks, because it would have been nicer if they could just say, well, we invest in this company, but we don't have to handle it, we don't have to make decisions. I think Microsoft probably would like to just become a publisher that would publish games from companies like Tango Gameworks instead of being an owner of video game companies. But yeah, very, very unactionable. Either you get mad from a headline like this or you just ignore it. I think most people are better off just ignoring it. There was a big announcement as far as Lollipop Chainsaw. Here we have Gamatsu having a reveal interview with Dragami Game CEO Yoshimi Yasuda. There was a lot of things that they've mentioned, and they put out a trailer. One thing about the trailer in particular is that it really puts some more emphasis on the secondary characters other than just Juliet, her family members, and the zombies. One of the super zombie bosses was voiced, I think, by like a celebrity pop rock type person. There is a question, I guess, if he would be revoicing that or not. He may have gotten in trouble for something, I'm not sure. And overall, some of the changes that they mention, which is that they've kind of sped up some things in the game to just make things a little bit faster for a modern time. And so it may very well, if they tweak everything and polish everything perfectly, be that Repop is just overall a better game by slight tweaks and mods. As you continue to do combos, the timing window to do more combos speeds up. So you have to get better and better if you want to get higher combos. So there's more challenge in it. Yeah. I don't think there was any real talk in this announcement as far as censorship or anything really controversial, other than what Lollipop Chainsaw is, which is a zombie hack and slash game with a barely 18. It's her birthday to be 18 in the game, and she gets presents like new chainsaws throughout the game. Cheerleader in a ridiculous, more fetish style cheerleading outfit than most schools would really have a cheerleader wearing. But yeah, for the people who have been keeping an eye on Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, this announcement seems to have landed well, and it is coming out September 25th, which weirdly, I guess, means it might be one of the few games that is actually going to be playable by the end of the year. This year, it is definitely scheduling itself pre Black Friday and Christmas, so there is, I guess, probably some assumption there will be more mainstream games released around Black Friday. And yeah, definitely there's been no new talk around Stellar Blade after the whole Summer Games Fest and the announcement of all these new games, which that is the one game I would say that really is going to suffer by being released a little bit early and then having Summer Game Fest suck all the oxygen out of the room and take all the attention up. But it's probably not suffering that much because people had pretty much already stopped talking about Stellar Blade, and it did manage, I think, to get a pretty good reception and pretty good sales by releasing itself earlier. And definitely, I would say the more niche games, the games less likely to sell, more compete against big AAA games, should probably release in the first 6 months of a year. And then we had Bethesda here. Why did I have Bethesda here? Because it is the 9-year anniversary of Fallout Shelter, which they seem to be doing absolutely nothing for. Maybe in the 10-year anniversary they will do something. I question how many people really have been playing Fallout Shelter non-stop for 9 years. Like, I definitely enjoyed Fallout Shelter for a couple of weeks, maybe even a month or two when it first came out, and I felt like they had added a decent amount of stuff last time I checked it out, maybe a year ago, but neither time would I really would I have wanted to stick with it. It first and foremost feels like a mobile game, but doesn't have enough hooks or daily quests to make me want to play it like a mobile game, particularly considering how it starts to heavily kind of want you to buy microtransactions, and there just really isn't an infinite gameplay loop around it, or it doesn't feel like there's an infinite gameplay loop. It feels like you build one vault and then it gets to a certain level and then you just would want to build another vault, which that could work, but I don't think there's enough of a late game in Fallout Shelter either, where it would take days on days on days to manufacture one really powerful thing. Bethesda is definitely focusing in now on promoting Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which I still question somewhat as far as how much of this is really going to be action or adventure and how much of this is really going to be more cinematic cutscenes. That whip gameplay in particular is going to have to be great. But yeah, they are definitely hyping it up more and more. As I continue to play Fallout New Vegas, I also really just feel like there's a lot missing in New Vegas compared to Skyrim, as far as just different kinds of things you can do. Like, and it's weird because like lockpicking in Skyrim kind of makes no sense. Yeah. Well, Repop is going to seemingly have an original mode that includes everything in the original game, is what that just said. And see here you have the zombies looking very dark and dreary, so that then it surprises you with color. because that's really what they seem to want and seem to be leaning in, is that they've added this new color mode. As you get more and more combos, the screen is just more rainbow colored. And here is the trailer showing off all of the family members who show up for just a brief second. I don't remember this guy. And then here's the super zombies. I believe it's Zed there that was voiced by some kind of famous pop rock guy. And see, I don't recall there being a sequence like this, but maybe there was and I just forgot it, where you're running alongside this giant character. At a certain level, I would want this to be a backdoor appeal for a sequel around Lollipop Chainsaw, because certainly it's an old enough game where you could redo all the levels to be longer, you could have more boss fights, more enemies. The only thing the trailer really doesn't mention is the boyfriends, the zombie head boyfriend. But yeah, that may very well be all the excitement that comes from all of this as far as announcements and goes. They'll do their best to try and promote it, but I don't know how many Western mainstream video game journalists will actually talk about it even once, let alone multiple times. According to Video Games Chronicle, the From Software boss would love more players to be able to enjoy Bloodborne. Hidetake Miyazaki discusses calls for a PC port of the game, which, yeah, it definitely is a situation where if Bloodborne was released to PC, I could see an argument to just playing Bloodborne, although I think Elden Ring is on the PC, at least it's on the Epic Game Store. It may not be on Steam yet, so I could also see just playing that. Anything that would prevent you from playing Demon Souls or Dark Souls 1 or 2 or 3, because each of those would be fairly old games or involved games. But probably wouldn't play any of them because they're all sold on requiring high levels of skill, and it's not like I'm getting better at those types of games. But yeah, this is another example though of at least game directors hearing that there is more of a desire for PC ports. And I definitely think Japanese game developers are going to be focused on PC ports, but a lot of old games probably not designed well, and so it probably would be very difficult to remake a game for PC or port a game to PC. Netflix's game boss Mike Verdu is taking on a new role at the streamer. Verdu is sticking with Netflix games, but will take on a position to champion innovation in game development. Which, yeah, I don't feel like Netflix games, even now, has yet risen to a level where it is actually relevant. It's definitely a secondary offering to what Netflix is offering. Which, speaking of streaming, I noticed that the Boys TV show with Homelander and such has got a new episode on Amazon Prime, and yeah, doesn't feel like they were promoting that as much. It definitely feels like Amazon is promoting it on like Amazon.com, but they're not really spending a lot of effort to promote it outside of their own free advertising infrastructure. But who knows? There could be a ton of ads running in places that my ad blockers are just blocking. And yeah, the Boys TV show really doesn't connect too much to video games. And then Godot wanted to point out that this service, Fastly, is free to developers, which it is some kind of, I think, website, like domain provider. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And so they're shouting out basically who helps keep their probably www.godot.com website up and going. But that's about all there. The Assassin's Creed Shadows developer explains why he's ignored Elon Musk's DEI kills art tweet, which this clearly is Video Games Chronicle's effort to put Elon Musk in a headline. DEI is diversity, inclusion, and what is it? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, that's what it stands for. Which, yeah, there is some more complaints to be made that have been made as far as they put out a new trailer, and when the selection screen showed the African samurai based on a real slave who was bought as and turned into a samurai in the history of Japan, they played American United States rap music over the selection screen, which makes no sense at all for the time. And yeah, he wasn't American, he was an African slave, I think bought from a British captain. And then when the selection screen went over to this lady, they played Chinese music, where she's supposed to be Japanese as far as I can see. And then the biggest sin, I think, from what I saw in the trailer, is that when they showed his gameplay, it just in no way feels like Assassin's Creed. It is a slow, positional, you've got to get in the right place to wait for a sword to shine so you can hit a button to counter, hack and slash samurai game. It is not a walking through a crowd hidden as an assassin. Yeah, this guy in particular is not walking through any crowds in Japan and being hidden amongst a group, nor is really she going to be walking through any crowds hidden. Not in that dress, not in that appearance. But yeah, every bit of his gameplay that I saw in the trailer did not feel anywhere close to an Assassin's Creed game. Not in one bit. At best, it felt somewhat like the worst parts that I would run into in Assassin's Creed 2, where you would be in a crowd and you'd be discovered, and then a whole bunch of enemies would circle around you, and every now and then one of them would shoot you and knock you down, and that you would just have to struggle to try and kill eight people encircling you before more enemies showed up. And that was always the losing situation and not the ideal situation in the Assassin's Creed game. And then you barely have Assassin's Creed appearance at all, even for this character. Yes, there's a hood, but it doesn't really scream Assassin's Creed. It just looks like a hood. Yes, there's a belt, but that too really doesn't have that white and red theme that you would expect to see from an Assassin's Creed, from some of the early Assassin's Creed games. So I question in a lot of ways whether this is a game that even started off as an Assassin's Creed game at all, or whether Ubisoft has just decided to call it an Assassin's Creed game after it has mostly been done. But yeah, there are people even speculating that they are intentionally making a bad Assassin's Creed set in Japan so nobody ever asks for that again when a good ninja Assassin's Creed game should be a no-brainer and should work very easily. Let's see. Moving on, Beyond Good and Evil 2 20th Anniversary Edition trophies have emerged, suggesting that a release is soon. 5 more years, we'll probably get a 25th anniversary. And what that mostly does for me is irritate me in that some of these games now, I'm going to have bought them 2 or 3 times in a lifetime, maybe for very little reason too. I would have to check to see if Beyond Good and Evil is in my Steam library right now. I'm not sure it even came to Steam in any form, but I'm not really expecting that you could do too much with the original Beyond Good and Evil to make a 20th Anniversary Edition much better. Meanwhile, this once beloved cult hit has just languished and is completely dead, and every now and then they will tease that Beyond Good and Evil 2, but I don't think it's ever going to get released. And even if it does get released, what they were teasing last time was not anything that felt like an actual sequel to Beyond Good and Evil, and really felt more like it was just a completely different game. It would make a lot of sense for them to straight up just remake Beyond Good and Evil 1 at this point, since you already have a successful hit in that. You don't have to rewrite the story, just change the graphics, improve the gameplay, improve the maps so they're a bit bigger, add some new challenges here and there, and resell it. Yeah, effectively make a 1.5 version of the game instead of just making slight remasters like anniversary editions. Valve is being sued again, facing a £656 million UK lawsuit for overcharging 14 million players. The company is accused of charging excessive Steam prices and anti-competitive behavior. This is basically a class action being brought. It's called the collective action in the UK. And certainly it's just going to come down to whether the UK wants to punish an American company like Valve or not. The excessive commission of 30% claim has been argued against multiple times before, since it is pretty industry standard, except for the Epic Game Store, which is charging less. But outside of the industry, 30% commission isn't even that non-standard. If this class action happened, each class member would win somewhere between £22 and £44 in compensation, with the majority of it, I assume, going to lawyers. There have also been some claims that there's anti-business tactics, that like there's some kind of agreement when you list a game on Steam that you can't list the game cheaper somewhere else. I don't believe that actually is the case. I could be wrong about this as far as the claim of anti-competitive, but I believe the agreement says if you sell your game on Steam, you cannot sell Steam keys to redeem it on Steam for a lower price than what it's listed on Steam, which is not really anti-competitive. It's just saying you can't get a bunch of free Steam keys from us and then go sell them on a Steam key trading site for more money or less money. Yeah, and see, I just don't think that's really the case. Also, it's not even uncommon, if it was the case, that's that's the situation. You may notice that the price for cross-platform games on the PlayStation and Xbox are always the same. Microsoft and Sony are doing the exact same thing. And Walmart in general has similar pricing agreements. And so if they can't catch Walmart by saying if you sell something at Walmart it has to be the lowest or the same price, why should you be able to catch Valve? There might also be an EU lawsuit that is almost exactly the same as this. Although inherently it's almost a case where the facts don't matter. It is just a case more of whether the UK wants to punish a company or not. And they probably don't. When we think back at just how easy the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger was done and accomplished, there was a lot of big business, pro-business sentimentality around that, and I would argue that the Activision Blizzard acquisition was a much bigger deal and really should have probably been blocked if anything. The Kingdom Hearts series is now on Steam and has been discounted for a limited time. Players can get the entire series for $100 off, or 31% off of each, roughly. The entire series being 1.5 plus 2.5 remix and 2.8 final chapters and 3 plus remind. It's probably a good deal. Yeah. Where seems to be like $70 in total. Kingdom Hearts 4 was announced in April of 2022. There is a question, though, whether that really is going to happen. And I wasn't 100% thinking it was going to be called Kingdom Hearts 4, as much as it might just be a soft reboot of the whole series. Now, if you do buy it on sale, you are risking that the game may be terrible on PC and it may just play awfully. Although there's probably a big enough fan base that would mod it and fix any bugs eventually if that was the case. And you are still running into the issue here where the Kingdom Hearts that I wish existed would have been a game where you're just playing as Mickey Mouse and Goofy and Donald, and none of these Square Enix Final Fantasy-like characters would actually exist, which, when you do the count, there's only 3 Disney characters here, and then there's a massive 8 Square Enix human-like characters showing up. And I think you pretty much only play as one male protagonist in any of the games, so at most you're playing as 3 of these characters, and then some of these are just secondary characters that you may not spend too much time with. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this character gets kidnapped and is just a damsel in distress for at least the main first game. Kingdom Hearts itself being a fairly weird series. And, yeah. I would definitely have wanted, after seeing even major success with Kingdom Hearts 1, I would have, as Disney said, I want you guys to make us a similar game to Kingdom Hearts, but with just Disney stuff. And then Square Enix is clearly doing the same. They're making Final Fantasy Square Enix type character games without the Disney element. And I definitely would question whether Square Enix ever actually achieved their goal of using Kingdom Hearts to convince little kids to get into Japanese RPG style games. Maybe that worked in Japan. I doubt it worked outside of the East, though. Maybe in the West. Yeah, I think most kids would have gotten bored with Kingdom Hearts. And even now, that is a problem. Like, yes, I'd buy this because I think kids might want to play this, but also, they probably don't want to play it I guess maybe if you had a kid who's played every single Pokemon game, they're probably pretty primed to role-playing games, so they might be a good target if they put lots of hours into grindy RPG type games. A Multiversus update attempts to fix ongoing desync and Xbox performance issues, which I guess that means people are at least playing Multiversus, that they're noticing issues. And then I thought we'd been pretty much done with Minecraft, but Tricky Trials update is now available for, I believe, Bedrock and Java Edition. Let's see. So this would be, you can go on the hunt for mysterious trial chambers, take on some seriously smashing rewards. In fact, instead of telling you about the incredible new features, why don't we just show you with this launch trailer. And so this is a video with a play button that has been skinned to look like a Minecraft play button, so didn't even recognize that it was a video. And clicking that just took me to a YouTube page. There definitely have been some mods that have added and created this idea of you're going to go into a trial realm and it'll be kind of a randomly generated experience each time to create a new gameplay loop once you're not focused on just crafting or surviving, which, yeah, that definitely changes what Minecraft is from being a survival crafting game into being a more action focused arena run roguelike game. But I think that concept has been particularly well received, and before people started making mods to do that, you would have had to make custom maps and load in a custom map each time. But yeah, there is literally no mining and no crafting happening in this trailer. And this is not actual gameplay, obviously. I have no idea what these enemies are, these little tornado enemies. This definitely still just falls down the list of how Microsoft just wants Minecraft to be a completely different game, or Mojang wants Minecraft to be a completely different game at this point. And it worked for Fortnite, so you can't really deny that there's a certain point to be made there, that sometimes games evolve or they get a bigger audience. It's kind of interesting that Minecraft itself on YouTube has only 13.1 million subscribers. Now, what I would think is that if you're doing these trials and then you're getting keys to unlock loot boxes, doesn't that imply that you would need some kind of custom loot system eventually? Otherwise it would just be kind of pointless. If you're just getting diamond armor at the end of each trial, why do that? Although I could see if you integrated it very nicely into the survival aspect, where you could go do a trial to get some diamond loot instead of having to go down to your mine and mine more diamonds. Maybe that would make sense, giving the player two different ways to get diamond armor. But for late game players, I would assume they would want heavily enchanted, heavily closer to bespoke custom items of armor and weapons. They are adding new content, though. Let's see. There might be some limitations as far as what you can take in with you into these trial worlds. Yeah, here's the GameDeveloper.com version of this headline for Valve being sued in the UK. So I guess it is just the UK and not the EU. Also, I don't know how big of a news this really is, but the Summer Game Fest is going to return in 2025, taking place in Los Angeles. So I'm not 100% sure where it has been happening before or where it happened this year. It may have also been in LA. This may just be Jeff Keighley announcing next year. Yeah. I guess the one thing you can say about the Summer Game Fest this year is that there was nobody jumping on stage doing anything crazy that happened, and no big controversy around that. I would assume the Summer Game Fest is invite only, but then they're saying Playdays is invite only, so maybe the Summer Game Fest is going to start selling tickets. At some point. I'm trying to be more like E3. Really don't see a lot of comforting information that implies Jeff Keighley really wants to do anything different from what the they don't want to do anything different from what E3 did, and they just want to replace E3. I am scrolling down my Twitter just to see if there's any new news worth talking about that has happened since we started streaming, and I don't believe there is. The whole Yacht Club Presents seems to have announced a Shovel Knight dig coming soon to PS5 and Xbox Series, it seems. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon free DLC Paradox Pack launches this summer. Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope DX announced for PC. And then a new mainline Shovel Knight game is in development. But yeah, that seems to be exclusively all they had to talk about was Shovel Knight stuff. Alright, so let's go through all the new games on Steam, which I suspect there's not a lot here. Alright, so this is a single player chess game. First and only chess career simulator. Play chess with the help of your AI character, solve chess puzzles, build an unrivaled opening repertoire, win tournaments worldwide. That's an interesting twist in that it seems like you're playing a little bit of chess, but you're also adding something more to it. Having a whole career mode in a chess single player game. Weirdly though, I think you run into a problem here that there is no multiplayer, so you'd expect there to be at least split screen multiplayer or shared screen multiplayer. You don't even need to split the screen in chess. Here we have our first rip-off game of the ridiculous clicker Banana, called Banana and Cucumber, which we can see is very mixed reviewed. Ensnared might be something here, so I'll give it a chance. Now I just stuttered, and I believe I closed the tab. Oh, and that is the problem with the left bump on the mouse, is that my fingers are not precise enough to do a left bump without closing tabs. So I just screwed up, and that game is not going to get a YouTube short made after it because of that. I wonder if I can trigger macros based on inputs on UI Vision. Because if I could, then I could add some logic to it, and that's what I need. Is I need a... No, I don't think this is good enough looking for a game to put on a fall list. I need some logic that would test the current web page to see if the fall list is linked, and if it is linked, if it is checked, if this image is here, leave the page open. Otherwise, close the page. Yeah, that is something I need to investigate. Meanwhile, there's still a lot of things I need to program and investigate. In particular, the Gematsu page is still not being processed the way I want them to be processed. Age of the Privateer. Today would be a good day to kind of work on some of that too, as my hand still hurts. Yeah, it kind of is a case where I really only want to assemble one piece of furniture at most once per month, probably closer to once per quarter or 6 months. Yeah, which is fine because it's like I really have no reason to constantly need new furniture or assemble new furniture. The next step is I need to move more furniture around. Saw this game, Willy's Wonderland, and I was thinking it was a very different game. See, there was a Nicolas Cage movie that I think was set in Willy's Wonderland. But that doesn't look like Nicolas Cage, and doesn't look like it really connects to that at all. Here we can see Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix getting 76% positivity overall. Yep. Let's see. This can show us a general idea of the different locations you'll go in the first game. I never actually made it to the end of the first game. Then Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue is 85% positive. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a case though that fewer people are just playing this game, since this has only 41 reviews. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC. Expanding, the graphics look different, and definitely the things you're playing now are, the worlds you're visiting are a whole generation or 2 or 3 ahead of what you would have seen in the other games. Like that's basically Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4 being shown on top of Tangled and Pirates of the Caribbean, which is not really even a not even a animated thing. And then I forget the name of this one. This one's being rated 91% positive with 104 reviewers. And that is also to be expected. Graphics look better. But yeah, you really can't jump into the third game if you haven't played previous ones. And none of these screenshots want to load. And I don't know if that's because something's broken here or what. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. This isn't good enough to put on the follow list anyways. This is the danger though, is that things didn't load. I think I did reduce the amount of time in between each page load, and that might have been a mistake, but it is so incredibly slow. I don't know how to, I really don't know how to fix that. And see, this one's called Dune Mechanic, but it's not the movie or the book series Dune from the looks of it. I don't think there's quite enough game here to give it a chance. Ronin's Requiem, no. I'm just going to be fairly picky today, I think. ASZG Project Director's Cut, no. Imperious. And see, it's not an issue of my internet speed, really, although that could be a factor. It's an issue of the fact that Steam as a website is just not ever going to let a macro open as many pages as fast as possible, because that looks too much like a denial of service attack. And frankly, it's just not worth their bandwidth to widen the pipes on their end that much. So I don't think there's any kind of tricky mathematical way to do it. The closest thing I could do is parallel things and have other actions on other websites happening at the same time. I'm going to be generous and give that a chance. Could say about the same for that one. You versus drugs. I'm gonna say no to that, and no to that, and I think I'm gonna say no to this one. I'll give this a chance, being perhaps very unfair here with the colorful anime one getting a chance when I dismissed the more realistic earth tone ones. I did get suggested something on YouTube of a new to me content creator talking about some real weird games I'd never heard of before. Some of them I had heard of, like talking about Princess Maker 1. It's definitely something I'd heard of, but maybe we can see. Monster Hunter Stories and Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance seem to be out at the same time. But yeah, I think that probably is an indication that the changes they've been changing to the YouTube algorithm as far as suggestions are starting to kick in. This one doesn't support English, and there is a chance that people now will just be suggested more smaller content creators, more new content creators in general, instead of just the exact same. And here's an old game that's just a storybook, but it kind of has some relevancy in that it is just a kid's storybook that's already been created. Whereas those kinds of storybook type apps, if they exist at all, are probably cell phone apps nowadays. Definitely I'd like to know if anybody is successfully sticking to the no screen time for kids below the age of 3 concept. even if they are sticking to that concept, are they limiting screen time more for younger kids? I feel like this game came out a while ago, but I guess not. I must be thinking of something different. We have one of these cheap Chinese adult looking games hidden outside of it. I got some comments on one of my YouTube shorts, which somebody said it was a great idea to do what I was doing as far as highlighting games people might not know about on Steam, and that it was better than the Steam discovery queue. And he made a suggestion of making like specific tags bigger at the bottom, and I don't know if he didn't see that the tags were already there as far as what the popular user defined tags come from Steam. And certainly I could change the CSS to make the tags bigger, but I don't see a reason to really change it. That would cause more problems probably than it fixes. And we have a cheap solitaire game with possibly licensed appropriately characters for the card art. I'm still crazy that there isn't just like a single game that lets you just import your own images if you wanted to do that. But yeah, I chose to just say thanks for the compliment and not disappoint by saying that it's just so automated it doesn't make sense to do any other kind of tags, particularly if the idea was that I would have to manually tag the games. There is probably room to adjust the CSS custom style sheets more, possibly get rid of the blue altogether and try to differentiate it from Steam even more, but yeah, I think the YouTube shorts are the one thing weirdly on my channel that have succeeded wildly. I'm getting more subscribers, I'm getting more views, I'm getting a little bit more watch time. None of it is quite fast enough. There definitely was a point there where it would have been really helpful to instantaneously be monetized and make some real money, and even now it would be very helpful if that happened, but I just have to have some kind of major success that would get me roughly 150 more subscribers, 2 to 3 times, probably closer to 3 or 4 times the amount of watch time. And honestly, the best bet there would be to have people subscribe to like memberships, which I doubt anybody would really do that because I don't think I'd really be able to offer anything amazing. Yeah, I don't think a resource management game needs to be promoted. And yeah, it's slightly irritating always to see the YouTube shorts succeed so well. But yeah. Eventually I do suspect that the algorithm will be changed and it will stop having its thumb on the scales for YouTube shorts, and then we'll see them less promoted. Although, yeah, there's still this very absolutely disconnected situation where anybody who's looking at your YouTube shorts is not getting ever promoted to watch any of your pre-recorded footage. Same seems to be roughly the truth for YouTube live streams. Drunk or Dead 2. It's an interesting title. there is certainly something to be said about how you could have the dumb shooters like the original Doom, or, well, I want to say Hatred probably was the last one that proved you couldn't do that anymore. Postal type games, or Duke Nukem type games. Duke Nukem 4 being another example of why those games don't really succeed and sell anymore. Give this one a chance. Escape room adventure. But nowadays, if you were to make something like Duke Nukem without it having a history, I definitely would have a high chance of ignoring that release and not making a YouTube short to promote it in any way. That might be something. Yeah, I think this is a social MMO is what they're saying it is. It looks like nothing to me. And that was that. If I am also going to work on programming, maybe I could fix the fall list cleanup. It would be a great day to also do fall list cleanup in general, if I'm letting my hand heal. So as far as the 24-hour peak, ignoring some of the top players always, like Counter-Strike and Dota, you can see Banana is in number 4 position, and it would have to get 250,000, 210,000 more players in a 24-hour peak. And yeah, it may just go up and up and up, but I can't imagine people are going to play it forever. As soon as something more interesting happens, people are going to have to leave it. People are finishing, I think, their experience with Destiny 2 with this last piece of DLC, and I don't think there's going to be any more content or any more people playing it. And over its lifetime peak, you can see it's about half as much, but it is still in the number 8 spot. People in general may just not be playing games. Helldivers 2, people aren't talking about it as much, but seem to still be playing it. And then same could be said for like Baldur's Gate 3, DayZ. Fallout 4 is down to the 33rd spot. Yeah. And then on the longer scale, looking at fewer games, we're seeing the Banana skyrocket above my maximum, and then we're seeing the other games tend to stay about where they are, with the exception of Destiny 2, which had this peak when the DLC came out and now is just falling back down, and I think it will eventually just fall down all the way to 0. I don't think they've said anything about shutting down the servers on Destiny 2 or anything like that, but I can't imagine if it really is the case that they're not going to add any more content. I can't imagine the servers would stay up forever. And then Elden Ring has some pre-order DLC that they're promoting on Steam. Still haven't gotten any kind of summer sale announcement for a date. And then there is a Steam Next Fest happening June 17th. If I click on this, what are they showing right now? A whole bunch of live streams showing off certain games, which seem to all be named already. Yep. Steam increasingly feels like they are trying to promote smaller and smaller games and promote demos more and more instead of just having big sales on games. And in particular, I could see a reason why they might not want to have a sale, like a summer sale. They probably will still have one, but I could see why they wouldn't want to emphasize it, in that the past couple of years hasn't really released a lot of new games, and I wouldn't be surprised if summer sales and Black Friday sales are mostly pushing people to buy big AAA games, which there really hasn't been a lot of them. And yeah, seems like you can just go through several different categories here. Let's see, are they promoting much of anything else? What is Scorn's review now? It's mostly positive for $9.99. That's probably about what that's worth. Ace Attorney Trilogy of 3 games at $40 is probably a decent price considering it's a niche game. Dead Space Remake at $18 is decent enough for... I mean, you can't really expect them to have given it to you for free for only the old games. It would have been nice, but it wasn't going to happen. Fable Anniversary still a good deal. Halo at $10, still a good deal. Death Stranding at $20, probably still a little too expensive for what it is. This RoboCop game, I guess reminding people that exist. Resident Evil 4 at $30 is a good deal. And then we're still getting the same Steam Deck sale, which, yeah, it's probably been 2 or 3 weeks since I've done anything with the Steam Deck. And we can see the new and trending are almost exclusively Japanese games. Starfield Creation Kit being an exception there. And then top sellers, jumping to the top now, is Kingdom Hearts. So there's some big enthusiasm there, and Elden Ring is high up here. And then popular upcoming games would be the question. Still Wakes the Deep, X Day. Alright. So then we would do the headlines, but before we do the headlines, oops, I'm almost out of disk space. I should have checked that. I'm going to fix that after I pause the screen and take a bathroom break too. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So clearly what I need to do is make yet another macro, or advanced scene switcher macro in particular for OBS, that would check the amount of available disk space and give me a warning. In particular, a timer countdown. I mean, both of those things are there already, but they're just not prominent enough as far as just how much space is available. And the disk full in approximate time, it takes a while to kind of calculate just because of the whole compression issue. So I was able, after pausing the recording, to just go and delete some videos, and now I have 100 gigabytes free again, which is approximately 34 hours and 14 minutes of recording, which that can go by very quickly. But yeah, I really need it to pop up like a box just at the very beginning. If it's below, say, 5 hours would be a good guesstimate, which would probably be somewhere around 20 or 30 gigabytes in space. Anyways, let's do the headlines and then I'll be done for today. Starting with Video Games Chronicle headlines, which I imagine we aren't going to have too much of news happening today on this Friday. eFootball Season 7 King of the Continent features European and American Cups. So, I imagine that might catch the soccer football fans' attention. Although, European Cup I would have to assume is more interesting than the American Cup is. Although, when it says American Cup, that may very well include like Canada and Mexico and South America too, so there is definitely more enthusiasm for soccer amongst non-United States citizens in America. Xbox's Sea of Thieves was PS5's most downloaded game in May. I guess I overlooked how much of a smack in the face that probably could be taken by PlayStation, in the fact that you have the most downloaded game on the PlayStation Network being a game developed and published by your supposed rival in Xbox. Although I doubt PlayStation really thinks of Xbox as its main competitor compared to Nintendo being its main competitor, or just even PC potentially being its main competitor. Tango Gameworks employee shares pictures from the Xbox studio's final day. What I would say, having looked at these pictures, is he really didn't take enough pictures, and he definitely went out of his way to not take any pictures of people's heads or faces. I question whether Tango Gameworks was really that big of a office to begin with, so I'm not sure how much photos you could really take that would be that meaningful. It's definitely somebody trying to make it seem meaningful. It probably does feel meaningful to the person taking the picture, like most pictures, but that doesn't mean it's really relevant to most other people. The Epic Games Store latest free titles have been confirmed. Redout 2 is now free to claim, ahead of a Freshly Frosted being coming out next week. Freshly Frosted is not a game I've ever heard of. It sounds like some kind of donut making simulator. It looks like it's probably a Sokoban box pushing game if I was to guess, or maybe a box sliding game. Square Enix has released Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail's launch trailer. Gears of War E-Day could be released in 2025, it's been claimed. The screenshot shows a lot more detail than what I actually saw when watching the trailer here. But in actual gameplay, I imagine you're not going to ever get that close to the face of any of the enemies in the game. Warcraft's general manager has left Blizzard after 12 years. John Haidt wants to explore new opportunities and challenges in the industry. One would assume that him leaving Blizzard means he's not in the line to work inside of some other Microsoft subsidiary or Xbox division or Microsoft's department at all. Perhaps there was some conversation that way, negotiation that way, that didn't go forward. That's just speculation on my part. And yeah, I don't think Larry Herb, aka Major Nelson, is secretly starting a new game company. If he is, he's doing it incredibly slowly. But that doesn't mean there isn't somebody else secretly starting a new game company, or companies like Embracer secretly or very publicly looking for new management talent to. So I imagine John Haidt, unless there's something more about his story that I'm unaware of, would be fairly welcome in a lot of positions and companies. So I imagine he has a lot of options. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop gets its first trailer and a September release date. From Software's boss would love more players to be able to enjoy Bloodborne. Assassin's Creed Shadows developer explains why he ignored Elon Musk's DEI kills art tweet. A Final Fantasy Tactics remaster is, quote, real and happening, it's been claimed. Its existence has been a subject for speculation for years, apparently. Remember, Square Enix just canceled a whole bunch of games, but that doesn't mean they aren't secretly working on other things. And remasters tend to be fairly easy. Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition trophies emerge, suggesting a release soon. The Kingdom Hearts series is now on Steam and has been discounted for a limited time. Multiversus update attempts to fix ongoing desyncing and Xbox performance issues. Xbox June console update has been released. V Rising was the UK's best-selling game in May, while PS5 continued to lead hardware sales. V Rising is a game that feels like it's been under talked about, and perhaps uniquely the best-selling game in the UK for May, because I definitely haven't heard a lot of people in the United States or in Japan talking about the game. But who knows? That doesn't mean there isn't a large number of people just playing the game in silence. Valve is facing a £656 million UK lawsuit for overcharging 14 million PC players. Xbox will release Aura History Untold in September. Oxide Games also offers a new look at the turn-based grand strategy game. Yeah, this is one of those top-down strategy type games, I think. Summer Game Fest is returning in 2025. The event will take place next June in Los Angeles. It will once again include a live stream showcase, which fans will be able to attend in Los Angeles to kick off proceedings. So they're actually going to let fans show up for Summer Games Fest, which, yeah, one hopes that the security is better than it has been in previous years. Well, the funny thing here is they're describing it as a live stream showcase event that fans can attend, which is just to say it's a live stream and it is not private. It doesn't seem like the way that's phrased, it's actually a case that fans can physically attend the event, but maybe that's what that means. It's a confused sentence. It should have been two things. It should have said it's a live streamed showcase. Also, period. Fans can also attend in person. Should be a second sentence. Team Asobi doesn't think it would be a problem if PlayStation wasn't part of a future Astro games. Quote, as long as the core elements and qualities of the game is great, then I think anything is possible, end quote. So they are responding probably to a question as far as do they think they could make an Astro game that would be on the Switch and not include PlayStation controllers and iconic graphs. Guerrilla says Lego Horizon Adventures and Nintendo Switch were, quote, a natural fit. June's PlayStation Plus game catalog, classics, and PS VR2 titles have been announced. An Epic Game Store database may have leaked many unannounced games. That's going to bring us to the Gematsu headlines and articles. Let's go ahead and just do those. Guilty Gear Strive Dual Rulers anime series has been announced. This would be based off of a video game, which I think a fighting game, which I believe is what the Guilty Gear series is a fighting series, might do very well to have an animated backstory to bring in more fans, whereas the actual fighting game itself doesn't really need that. In a funny way, it's kind of surprising something like Mortal Kombat hasn't done that, considering how Warner Brothers owns Mortal Kombat, so they could have at any point made like a more TV series, more movies around the Mortal Kombat games as the games were being released. Yes, they did make a couple of Mortal Kombat movies many years ago, and they've made maybe a couple of remakes much more recently, but the remakes don't seem like they actually are trying in any way to be affiliated or associated with the actual game. And they definitely don't feel like they're getting released at the same time. Arguably, by having an animated series, it might make more sense to that they can release things in a faster pace to follow up and be in line with the releases of the games, whereas live action movies take more money and more effort and time. The expectations are just lower for an anime series a lot of times. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop reveal interview with Dragami Game CEO Yoshihime Yasuda is available at Gamatsu.com if you want to read that interview. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop launches September 25th worldwide for the PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC. Let's scroll down here and see if there is a Steam link. I bet there isn't. There is still a fairly inconsistent thing here. We have concept art that this looks like this is probably the reversible cover of the art if it gets released in a physical version, which I'm not sure it actually is getting released in a physical version, but that is very much flat, cartoony, colorful depictions, where the actual game has more of a neutral color palette, at least when it isn't doing a whole bunch of colorful effects on the side of the screen. There's definitely an argument too that you could have a sequel or a spin-off series involving some of the other family members of Juliet, or even the zombie head of the boyfriend, who, yeah, I don't know if you ever put him back together again by the end of the game. I don't think you do. Life is Strange Double Exposure has an extended gameplay video, voice actors, and director interviews available at Gamatsu.com. At the moment, I don't see a real reason to get hyped about what the game actually is. I'd rather get a lot closer to the release date and see some coverage and see what people have to say about it. Unfortunately, my fear is that a lot of people are going to say, well, it feels slightly worse than the original game, and a lot of time has happened in between the events when the original game was released, so expectations have been raised. And certainly there is still going to be a problem about all those other Life is Strange games that weren't well received being released. It is a very difficult series to stay loyal to, I think, for pretty much anyone to have stayed loyal to. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is coming to Steam on August 8th. I didn't realize it wasn't on Steam. but we'll put it on the fall list. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble DLC Sega Pass adds Axel from Crazy Taxi, which I didn't know there was actually a character name for the Crazy Taxi driver. One would assume he's still inside of a ball, though, even though he's not really being depicted that way. Let's see. Yeah. These Super Monkey Ball games could basically have anybody in them because it's just going to be around a round ball, like a little capsule toy. I have to definitely wonder if capsule toys are not losing some of their fandom in Japan as things just get more and more expensive, and people have less and less money to waste, although I would imagine capsule toys are just incredibly cheap and probably purchased by kids who have more disposable income than adults would. But yeah, I could definitely see how Super Monkey Ball would start to lose some of its connection and relevance if capsule toys weren't as commonplace of a thing. And in fairness to Super Monkey Ball, it doesn't really do a lot with the capsule concept anyways. It's not like you finish a level and you have some kind of currency to unlock more capsules and unlock more characters. Instead they're making you, I assume, pay for DLC to get more characters. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero game modes showcase and limited split screen multiplayer have been confirmed. THQ Nordic to attend Gamescom 2024 with 2 unannounced playable titles. Parasol Stars, the story of Bubble Bobble 3, launched July 11th. This is eShop, Nintendo eShop and PlayStation Store. I assume this is an old game that I'm just not really familiar with. I'm familiar with Bubble Bobble. Definitely looks like an old game. Famitsu sales from 6.3 to 6.9 have been updated on Gematsu.com. Let's see what the sales are in Japan. Doesn't feel like there was a lot of new games released in the past week. So you have Nintendo Switch games that are old taking up the first 13 spots. You have one PS5 of Stellar Blade in the 14th spot. Then you have 2 more Nintendo Switch games. And then you have Rise of Ronin for the PS5 on the 17th spot. And the only new game in the entire top 30 list is Touhou Spell Carnival in the 24th spot for Nintendo Switch. With those software sales, it is easy to assume that Nintendo Switch sales are still very high and PS5 is not really catching up. Like, inherently, the PlayStation 5 can't catch up if it's always in the second spot to any Nintendo Switch model at all. Doesn't matter which one. It's probably always going to be the Switch OLED model, but as long as these numbers are higher than these numbers, this number will always be higher than this number. That's just simple ratio math. And there's no way really to play it, so that would be a different outcome. Meanwhile, Xbox Series X and S can just be happy with having higher numbers. Selling 1,500 units in a week is actually a massive amount of success for the Xbox Series X, considering how they were selling in the hundreds, in the dozens very often. And PlayStation 4 definitely seems like it is the next one out. They have stopped announcing any sales for the Nintendo DS, which was the one hardware unit that was selling like 20 units at most per week. And PlayStation 4 seems to be going in that same direction too, where it is just going to be gone forever. I don't think it would ever be fair to take the entirety of the sales of the PlayStation 4 and add it to the PlayStation 5 sales to then claim that combined the PS4 and 5 have outsold the Switch. I don't think that would even be true, because then if you're going to do that, you'd have to combine the OLED model and the Switch Lite and the Switch sales, which the 20 million Switch sales alone here would outpace PS5, PS5 digital, and PS4 combined. I assume there was a PS4 digital at some point, but maybe not. But yeah, it definitely seems like a slow week. Space for Sale launches in early access this summer. New game. It looks like it might be some kind of sandbox colony sim game. Might be worth looking at. Discord on the PS5 Direct from console voice chat is rolling out over the coming weeks. The feature will roll out first in Japan and in Asia. So this is the idea, I suppose, of having your voice chat go to a specific Discord. You want to select your group of friends instead of a just general in-game chat or a general team chat. It's kind of crazy that Sony would hand over the keys like that to a major feature and have Discord handle it. I imagine Sony is still probably listening in, or at least has the legal right that you've signed away to listen in to what's being said when you're talking on Discord. Yeah. We have at this point hit a point where none of the consoles support Twitter at all, so they might very well just be trying to integrate Discord to be a Twitter replacement on top of being a voice chat replacement, on top of being a forum replacement, which, yeah. It is very possible, in my mind, that Discord might just slowly evolve, and it might just feel like it is the default commonplace place to go to chat. But I don't know if it really is ever going to work, because it just doesn't have any kind of curation or front page or feed system, so it needs some of that. Otherwise, you have to know somebody who already has a Discord that would invite you in or want you, even if it is a public Discord, you have to know somebody to tell you to go to that public Discord. Otherwise, there's just nothing you can do with the Discord. My attempts to see if it would be useful in my life have proven mostly failures, and that I haven't found any Discords to be particularly helpful in any way. If anything, it feels like it is very much an impermanent forum, where it would have been better to have conversations on more permanent forums that would stay on the internet forever. Scars of Mars is adding a Switch version. It is due out June 20th. Panzer Paladin is now available for the PS4 and Xbox One. First launched on PC July 21st, 2020. And this one is actually on my wish list, which I'm not sure really why it is. Yeah. I would think I would say no to this game just because it's not my style. Yep. Despite the fact that it's well received, it's just not the kind of game I would want to play. Not those visuals. Era History Untold launches September 24th. It's also available via PC Game Pass. LRG3 2024 limited run game showcase is set for June 20th. Lifeless Moon is coming to the PS4 and 5 and the Xbox One and Series on July 9th. That's going to bring us to the GameDeveloper.com articles. The ZeniMax Union has secured Juneteenth holiday for all ZeniMax staff. This is, I guess, one of those examples also where a union will represent people even who aren't members of the union very often, because I'm sure all ZeniMax staff is not members of the union. Staff, I don't think includes management. So, yeah, may very well be a case that the management is still working on Juneteenth, but whatever. They can't really control that. Fortnite and the Epic Games Store are coming to Japan's iOS store in 2025. A Tango Gameworks developer documents the studio's final day. The World of Warcraft general manager John Haidt exits Blizzard after 12 years. Jackbox Games is going to launch a unified game library in July. The Jackbox Mega Picker will let Steam players launch any and all Party Pack games. They have no switching necessary. That definitely is a smart move. There's a lot of these little mini games here. The question I would have is, does it support all of the You Don't Know Jack games, or only maybe the most recent ones? For people who try out the Jackbox games and like them, they seem to be well received, but they are kind of weird bundles of mini game type experiences or medium-sized game type experiences, none of which sell themselves particularly well on their own. You Don't Know Jack perhaps being the one game that sort of stood on its own by being an older game series and having some nostalgia around it. Noticeably, the Jackbox company also has not tried to make a new trivia You Don't Know Jack game in a long time. Watch Nintendo's first ever TV promo aired in the United States. The style of the Migo timeout promo would come to be repeated in ads for future systems across all of games. This is the Video Game History Foundation has recovered and released a potential first ever TV commercial for a Nintendo system in the US and outside of Japan. They found a 16mm commercial through game historian Chris Kohler in an online auction. The handheld is the Migo Timeout. The commercial dates back to the 1980. The Timeout came through a licensing deal between Nintendo and the UST toy company Migo. Migo released 4 early Game & Watch systems identical to the originals, but with its logo and a new Timeout branding. So yeah, this is not for the Nintendo Entertainment System in the 83. This is for a early Game & Watch. Which, yeah, it definitely feels like a lot happened for Nintendo in a very short amount of time in those 80 to 83 time periods, as far as them making Game & Watches and Famicom and the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I would be tempted to watch the entire video here. 47 seconds. Yes, that's not too much. This looks like this is just a full scan of the film instead of what you would expect as far as a proper yeah, that's Juggler. Game and Watch game. Definitely the fashion is kind of crazy. They're calling it toss-up. Yeah, and you would expect somebody could clean that up better so you could just see the actual commercial and not all of the scratches and elements on the side. And here's an example of a frame, particularly where it's been worn down somewhat too. And then of course you could run it through color correction and AI video fixing or manual color correction and fixing and make it look a lot better. What is interesting also about that commercial is you may have overlooked the fact that there wasn't any kids being sold that product at all. These products were not being targeted to children. They were being targeted to adults who had been injured and can't do actual physical activity, and were more affluent, rich people, people at a tennis club, people at a skate rink, basketball players, football players. Yep. I would assume that implies that the Migo Timeout was probably selling for a fairly high price too. Nowadays you look at something like that and you go, oh, this has got to be a $10, $20 product at best, but there is a high possibility that it was being sold for what would have been the equivalent of $80 or $90. It'd be interesting to investigate that, but I'm not going to waste my time on that. SAG-AFTRA says a strike is likely if publishers disagree with the AI protections they want. An XZA/UM dev says scrapped Disco Elysium spinoff could have saved the studio. Netflix Games boss Mike Verdu is taking on a new role at the streamer company. We did not set everyone up for success, says VR Chat, who is cutting 30% of the jobs after over-hiring. It has been probably at least a year and a half, if not 2 or 3 years, since I've heard anyone say anything about VR Chat. I don't even recall seeing it being promoted on Steam. And certainly these concepts of you can be any kind of avatar and you can chat to people run out of steam because it doesn't serve any specific purpose. It's just chaos and anarchy in the vein of some VR chat function, when you could just have a non-VR chat function like Discord, which would be more accessible as you don't have to have a VR headset. Valve is sued for allegedly overcharging 14 million UK Steam players. A new Apple update for porting toolkit aims to accelerate iOS development. Elden Ring tops 25 million in players and sales ahead of an expansion launch. Gearbox is officially out from under Embracer Group. Solium Infernum developer League of Geeks is entering hibernation months after layoffs. The Australian studio explained making video games has become excruciatingly hard. And then WB says Suicide Squad will see its 1-year roadmap through to the end. One assumes it's not going to go any further than that. And that's going to be it for this show. Yep, that worked out perfectly. Again, even taking breaks in the middle of the streams, I have figured out a way to stay fairly consistent at 3 hours. And I'm happy for that. Anyways, that's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and keep on watching. Thanks.